Hi, I'm Gino Cafarelli, and you're listening to Italians, Sicilians Do It Better.
What's going on, everyone? We're back with another one. Today, I have something a little different. Director, actor, everything under the boat you could think of. Gino Cafarelli is in the building.
What's up, guys?
How are you?
What's happening? I always kind of, you know, when they always say actor, writer, producer, director, I always kind of get a little funny about that.
Nah, man, why?
I mean, I do.
I applaud what you do.
Use the labels behind what they, you know, what they are and what they do. I just, you know, these days I just say I'm an artist that, you know, was always creative and.
Yeah, but listen, the movie Cruise, Jersey Bred. I saw your movie on your name on there as producer or director. Yeah. Your name is on there, so. And
I get it, but you know how a lot of people like to kind of give themselves a pat in the back. Look what I did. I'm like, I'm the furthest from that. And even in some of the characters that I play, they're like, oh shit, you always play, you know, the either the asshole, the badass, or the bad guy, and then, you know, that's totally the opposite. You know, I may have a hard exterior, but I'm a teddy bear. I'm a teddy bear inside. I mean, I just, So I always get kind of like that stereotype of, you know, you look, you know, malamente.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, bad guy. But
one of my favorite lines that you did though was in Jersey Bred. Your wife, that what's her name? I forget her name.
Yeah, the actress Delilah
yes.
Cotto.
Yeah, the Cotto, when she comes out to you in the car, and you just come at her. That scene right there is a great scene. Yeah, and that scene got a lot of
some of it was scripted. Yeah, well, some of it was scripted, and some of it was just improv. I know Delilah. I met Delilah in L.A. when I lived in L.A. And again, I've dated Latin girls, and I kind of wanted it to be real, and not like you throw in the token. Sometimes a token Italian mom or Italian girlfriend, and this was real. I've dated Latin girls, and there was that. You know, like that fire, Latin, Italian, there was that fire. So it was real. So when we were going at it, like we were kind of like in the zone and we had good chemistry as like
absolutely.
As actors. Yeah.
And you put that in a few of your movies. You know, you put that in Cruise, where, you played the Italian dad, then you put it in Jersey Bred. Like a lot of those movies that you've done has your story. Like Cruise.
Well, I always say loosely based.
Yeah.
Like loosely based. So I mean in Cruise, the lead actor was supposed to be me, but he was the Hollywood version of me. And Spencer Bowman, the actor, did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you put two and two together, which is not that hard, his name was Gio instead of Gino.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, was that supposed to be you? I'm like, well, just the end's missing. Yeah. I mean, that was, it was loosely based on how I grew up in Queens. Right. I grew up in Flushing, Whitestone, Bayside area.
Yeah, that movie sucked me in because French Louis Boulevard, that's what we did. Yeah. The nights out, that's what we did.
Freestyle.
The freestyle, the diners. Like it was like living back
that movie was so relatable. It was just like I couldn't stop. Like I would watch. It's one of those movies that you just would watch over and over because it's so relatable. When something is so relatable, it's just like with comedy. People will laugh at comedy only if it's relatable, some of it. Or some of it, people will just laugh at it anytime. But it was just it's a very relatable movie to us.
Well, when I moved to LA, I kind of, I didn't go there for a specific purpose. I really wanted to get out of New York. I moved to LA in 2006. And when I moved out there, people are like, oh, you moved out there to, act. I go, well, I've been kind of acting, I was in the corporate world for a long time. I was taking classes in the 90s and I did theater. So like, oh, you're going out there to, be an actor. I'm like, well, I'm kind of doing it here, but I just wanted to get out of New York. And like, I always wanted to go to LA. So I kind of went and I navigated. It was, you think living in New York is tough. Like people are like, oh, cause LA, California, easy breezy. Yeah, they're laid back. And they're like, well, you're in New York, you have tough skin, right? Yeah, of course. But it wasn't like navigating LA. And I caught the tail end of LA. I left in 2012. Then it got a little even crazier, but it was tough. It wasn't easy like living in LA. And the number one lesson that I learned from being in LA was people were like, be your authentic self and write what you know. So that's how I came up with the concept of Cruise. I was in LA. I was in my apartment smoking a lot of weed. But I was in my apartment. I started, jotting down, how I grew up, and then I thought about it. I was like, wow, circle back around 30 years later. Like, if I were to like revisit myself as a 17-year-old cruising Franny Lou and saying, well, 30 years later, you're going to be writing, producing a film based on how you grew up in Queens, I'd be like, get out of here. But that's one of the big lessons that, a few big producers told me out there. They're just like, write what you know.
This is something too that you obviously have to have in you.
Right.
When did you realize that's what you wanted to pursue?
Yeah. I mean, I would sit in front of the TV and I would watch, Friday nights would be, not like, again, I'm dating myself, but we're Gen X, right? You guys are Gen X. I mean, is it the tail end? Like, what year were you born?
We're tail end.
Is it Gen X?
We're tail end.
I'm 84.
Yes. So you're 84?
Yeah.
It's millennial.
So you're not Gen X.
Millennial, right?
So, so 65.
Yeah,
so,
millennial.
so Gen X is 65 to 80, right?
Yeah, I'm 81. So I just...
But you're, again, 1 year apart, but I mean, you consider yourself a Gen Xer,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like shows like, I would sit in front of the TV and watch Dukes of Hazzard, The Incredible Hulk.
Right.
Shows like SWAT and Beretta and Kojak and like all those cop shows and stuff. I got the bug from like even, like just watching The Price is Right. Like it was weird because it was shot in California. The game shows were shot in California. And I was like, California seems so far away, which it is, like on the other side of America. But I caught it early. And again, I didn't have that support system. My parents were Italian, immigrants from Italy. Then I'm not going to quite understand, I wanted to pursue a life in acting or film and TV. So I kind of, I went, you conform to a way of like, go to school, get a degree, get a job, get benefits,
work for the union,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to call it a brainwash, but if you see that guy doing it and you see that guy doing it, I'm like, oh, I guess that's what I got to be doing. But as I got older, it was like, and this is up until, let's say about 12, 15 years ago, I had an epiphany. I was like, this corporate thing is not, I did it for a while. I did very well in it. I think my last corporate job was like 2006, right before I went to LA.
Yeah.
I was like, I left a cush corporate job to like live on a couch. In Santa Monica.
Was the transition scary? I mean, because it's like you're having a paycheck and now you're trying to pursue something. Is that a scary jump to do?
No doubt. But again, I was balancing like I was always doing something. I was always selling something.
Yeah.
But if I was selling something, it was something that I believed in. So I was, going to school at night. I was like on a 10-year program in college. I was a pharmacy student for 2 years. Like I got out of, high school.
Yeah.
I went straight to college and was a pharmacy student at St. John's.
Wow.
For the first 2 years, I'm taking pharmacy because I had good grades. I sucked at standardized tests. I wasn't good at SATs or any of that shit. And I was like, oh shit, my cousin's going to be a pharmacist. And I'm like, oh, this is what you make after you get out of pharmacy school after 5 years. I was like, oh shit, that was a big number back then.
Right.
It's like, all right, so I'm going to do that. I'm like, I'm good in school. I'm smart, but I decided, to again, go like, oh, my cousin's doing it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a lot of money when I got it. And the first 2 years were just brutal. I'm like, this is not for me. So I switched to business.
Yeah.
And then I started working right away. And then I started going to school at night. And then I was on the 10-year program to get my degree.
Okay.
And I give that credit to my mother because she was pushing. She's like, you better finish. So I graduated. I got my degree in 99. I started college in 87.
Wow.
Because I was busy working. Like I got into like these corporate jobs where you needed a degree without the degree.
Make you feel good. I graduated high school in 99.
Yeah. Oh, shit. So, but I mean, it goes to show you like these jobs required a 4-year degree. And I'm like, yeah, I have it. I put it on my resume. But there was no like way of like tracking it.
Right.
Like saying, oh, we're going to check up on, we're going to call the school. They didn't do any of that. They just said, oh, we like you. You want a job. And it's like, it said 4-year degree required. And there I was working in corporate America and I was making good money and making these companies all this money. And it was good for a little while. I mean, who's not going to take an expense account, a salary, plus commission, plus gas? I mean, it was a good time. This is like 97, 98. I got married in 99.
That's why I asked. It's like you have the salary, you're set. So the transition has to be scary, but
It was, but I was like, you know what? I was kind of like, again, I was over I sat in my cubicle in 2006. So I was like with another big company. And I was like, they were like, well, if you kind of stick with it, you're going to make about 250,000. This is like 2006. And I'm like, wow, really? Yeah. I'm like, oh, money. And everyone was like, oh, you're going to be a top guy here. And the people that I trained with, they're like, oh, you're going to do really well here. And I'm like, yeah, and then I'm just like in my cubicle. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, I kept on recycling.
Yeah.
You know, getting on the subway. You know, in a shirt and tie, sweating my ass off on the subway. And again, there's nothing against, you know, the 9 to 5er, but they're also saying in 10, 15 years, the 9 to 5 job is going to be obsolete. I don't.
Yeah.
It's, you know, crazy. So I just either jump into the deep end of the pool. And again, I didn't go out there with a plan. I just wanted to get away from New York for a little while, and it was just time. It was hard, you know, being, you know, coming from an Italian family to like kind of like leave your parents and you know, go. And I was like, I was just like, I literally packed 2 bags, put some money in my pocket, and I went out to California.
See, but you took that sacrifice, and something that you said earlier. Now, I watched Cruise, I watched Jersey Bread, I watched Capone. The quality of this is what I want to talk about without insulting anyone. The quality of acting is top notch when it comes to you, Jeremy, Luke, and all these guys. You guys are professional actors, not social media actors that have become actors. You guys are professional.
I don't know if they've become actors, but I mean, again, it's just a different mindset. Like, I was, again, sitting in front of a TV and I was like, holy shit, how do I do that? And how is that done? How is that made? And like, I wanted to go to film school. Like, I took acting classes, but I took acting classes in the early 90s. Like, I wanted to go to film school. I wanted to go to NYU.
You can tell though, like it's pure acting. It's not like there's some shows out there that we can't stop watching because the acting is so bad, but we can't stop fucking watching it. But you know, because the acting is just like,
again, but there's a difference now. Like, is it because people just want to be noticed and look like cool? Look at me. I'm.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with
that.
But again, I don't want to sound redundant because I've said this before in the past, and you know, when I've done interviews, like you could put all the whipped cream on top of shit all you want, and it could look beautiful, right? And you decorate it, you put strawberries, and it looks amazing, right? But then at the bottom of the cake, it's still shit, and eventually you're going to get to the bottom of the cake, right? And there's going to be shit there. Exactly when even when it snows, and like New York looks beautiful, and there's a lot of snow, and it looks like, oh, La Neve, oh, it's beautiful, this and that. And then when you start seeing the Strunzes in the street, and then the snow melts away a little bit, and it gets like wishy-washy and looks all dirty, that's, you know, that it comes like that. So I use that analogy with the cake because I always believe the work comes first. Like, put in the work, and then everything else will follow. Like, a lot of people don't want to put in the work. They want to go from A to Z in like a heartbeat, like as if it's a race.
Yeah.
I don't look at it as a race. I'm like, if the work speaks for itself and you're doing it for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons, you're going to have peaks and valleys, but at the end of I call it a journey. You know, it's more of the journey, not the destination. So for me, it's the journey and about the work. Put in the good work.
It's very
hard to navigate.
You could just tell the difference in quality when it comes to
well, someone with experience,
right, exactly.
And someone just doing a 30-second video. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, you know, the some of the people that are doing it on social media, do you think they have a goal in mind? Like, I've worked with certain influencers, and some of them say they want to do they want to get to that level,
right?
You know, and I feel like sometimes like Yoda, you know, as the, like, you know, because I've been around a lot longer, and I say, well, you got to put in the work, and you know, it's your work ethic, and I see a lot of people do, you know, they're always on. And I know it's hard to come up with a certain bit every single day. I mean, I know it's hard.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like really hard. And then you have a life in between,
Right.
Like,
I mean, that's my thing. My things are strictly skits. That's why I'm always spur of the moment. I just do my stuff when I have an idea, and that's it. Like, I could go weeks without making anything. because I just don't. I don't make it my life. That's what I'm trying to say.
But you also, I remember you did an interview, I think, with Judy Torres. I think for you, it was very therapeutic as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And you did it for that reason, be
Absolutely.
therapeutic. So you caught on and you struck a nerve with the audience because you were being authentic, you were being yourself.
Absolutely.
So it was like it was self-help, self-therapy for you.
Yeah.
Self-healing.
And
I started when I was going through the hardest time of my life.
and
That's when it
that,
started.
but if you look at a lot of comedians,
Yeah.
They suffer from something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something
Absolutely.
like, listen, when you're an artist, there's something always off, and not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's like we're not like I know I'm not, I'm not psychotic, but I know there's a screw loose when it comes to creativity because this is just how and who I am. It's something that you hit with it, but again, circling back to the conforming and like going through the corporate, like, oh, you gotta get the job, you gotta get this. After a while, I was like, no, and then I started like watching stuff and like that they should have taught in school.
Mm-hmm.
Like you become what you think about. So as a kid, all I thought about is wanting to make movies, wanted to go to film school. My parents weren't gonna like pay for film school. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, but I'm like, it's NYU. They're like, oh, unless it's medical school. Like, so I'm self-taught.
Right.
Like, and some of the greats, not that I'm saying that I'm a great filmmaker, but some of the greats, like a Tarantino, who I admire, and I'm like a huge Tarantino fan. Like, he's self-taught. He worked in a video store.
Yeah.
And he just loved movies.
There's a great quote from Tarantino. I cannot remember, but there is a great quote from him.
Yeah. I mean, again, he's
regarding filmmaking.
Yeah. And he made me realize that if you want to tell the story and you believe in the story, tell your fucking story.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about what other people are going to think. If you want to tell the story, you want to be your authentic self and be like, no, it's a story and I want to tell this story. Who cares what other people think?
Yeah.
But that's, again, we could talk about that for hours. Like, a lot of people do care what people think.
We got a Jersey Bread 2 movie coming out? Or?
Well, I spoke to the director when the movie came out. We had some ideas. I mean, I'm not going to rule it out.
Right.
I know, again, life gets busy. He's got a family, and he's working on some other projects and stuff. But we did have conversations about it, and I wouldn't rule it out.
What's your proudest accomplishment when it comes to filmmaking and anything you even acted in?
Well, I got to say, as a writer, I mean, I wrote a children's book.
Okay.
Inspired by my daughter. So that, and I have a lot of friends that always say this to me. They're like, and I know I don't want to sound cliche and I don't want to sound cheesy, but the biggest role is being a father.
Absolutely.
And then during COVID, when everything shut down, I always had the idea of writing a children's book. And I wrapped it up, during COVID, and then, self-published it, hybrid publishing, and got it out there. And it's inspired by my kid.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my proudest moment because, kids book, because I did the research, a kid's book, kids still like to touch.
Absolutely.
So I did my research, and kids books, they still sell because a kid, I know they have the iPad, but
yeah,
opening up a page and seeing
my
colors,
daughter's 9 years
reading,
old. She loves reading books.
Yeah, and I mean, so I was like, no, like a hardcover children's book.
Yeah.
And because, my daughter was born with a hearing loss,
mm-hmm.
and that's what the book's about. It's about a little girl that navigates her everyday life, putting in her hearing aids. Now she got an implant. But again, I see how I write authentically
right.
close to home. And I'm like, that book will be around for the next, knock on wood, a couple 100 years. That to me is like leaving a legacy versus, doing something like cool and like, look at me,
You ever think about writing a movie around her?
I've had, because I own the rights to the book, I feel, again, you do the work, you put the great work out there. My friends who I respect in the film and TV world are like, that's your biggest, like that you should be, I said, I am proud of it because it's about my kid. She inspired me to do that. Again, the book's out there.
Yeah.
So it'll do its thing. It'll get out there. I may get a phone call in a year. I may get a phone call in 10 years, or she may get a call in like 20 years and be like,
right.
hey, we want to make an animated series about the book.
Right.
Or they want to make a movie about the book. Like I pitched I think I spoke to you
Yeah,
about
you
it. I
spoke
pitched
to me about it,
a
yeah.
cartoon,
Yeah.
like it's 2011. This is before,
Show me some clips also.
yeah, this is before, like the internet and social media blew up. And I was pitching it with Henry Winkler and like some of the biggest voice actors, like voicing the pitch for like a cartoon. But back then, there was no streaming, there was no, content
real work
creation.
putting in. Yeah.
And we went to and I went back out to LA to pitch it. And we pitched like the Cartoon Network and this network and that network. And then Disney even passed on it. But they're like, you know what, this might be, something like you want to do maybe live action, like Little Rascals. I'm like, oh, I like that. And like, again, but stuff falls through the cracks. And it was just the right time, right place, or the wrong time. The right material, but the wrong time. Like if I really pursue that now and pitch it and, speak to a couple of people, I could probably get it off the ground. Like I wanted to turn it into maybe a voice podcast.
Right.
Or again, pitch it as an animated thing. But it was the wrong time. It wasn't.
Yeah.
What we have
Social
now,
media,
like
what we
this,
have now, forget about it.
Right.
Yeah.
There was none of that. I think what do we have? We had MySpace.
MySpace.
That's what it was. 2011 when I pitched that show.
Yeah.
Again, it was MySpace and Facebook. That's it.
Yeah. Facebook just probably had got off the ground.
That was it. And then you had traditional, regular like stations, and you had cable TV, and like a lot of these people passed on it. But that's peaks and valleys. A lot of people are going to pass on stuff. They're always going to, in one moment you're kind of like, and Matt Damon says that all the time. I worked with Matt Damon on The Good Shepherd, 2005. But he said it to me that day when we were working together, but he says it on podcasts and interviews.
Yeah.
It's feast or famine, peaks and valleys. That's what this business is. And I respect him because he would tell stories about he would go in for an audition and he would go up against this one, that one, and Ben Affleck would go up against this one and that one. And by the time they actually got to like maybe, oh, we're going to be considered for this role, they would be let down and wouldn't get it. And they're like, well, then there's some, so far and few of like auditions or roles that come along. Like it talks about going up against like Ed Norton in Primal Fear.
Right.
He talks about going up against Ethan Hawke, I think in Dead Poets Society, because like those movies come around once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
So that's when they decided, they were like, okay, well, we're not going to keep on waiting for we're going to wait for crumbs. And that's when they wrote Good Will Hunting.
Wow.
They kind of made their own vehicle. And that's what a lot of people are doing today,
Is there a big part that you ever auditioned for that you wish you would have gotten, but you didn't?
That's the story of my life. I don't want to, there's a show on now. It's on Paramount Plus. It's an Italian actor who, was a 1,000,000 to 1 shot. He did a movie back in the day, and
Yo, Adrian.
yeah, and he's got a show. He's got a show on Paramount Plus right now. I wish I would have got that. Of course, I was close to that. Like they call in the business like pinned for the role. They put you up on a board. They pin you, but then you got the two guys.
It is a good show.
It's good.
Thinking about the one you're talking
It's
about.
good. And I got friends. Yeah, I got friends on the show.
Yeah.
And, but I'm not one of those guys because I believe there's an abundance for everybody. It's not like, it's not like, again, the more you hate, the more you're not going to create. Like stay away from the hating and create a little more. Don't hate, create. I know it sounds.
When you don't get a role, do you feel discouraged? Like, does it set you back?
I mean, there were certain shows and certain movies that, that I was disappointed, but I brushed it off. And like, I'll talk to friends that'd be like, yo, come on, you've been in this business long enough. You're like, just kind of brushed it off. I'm like, yeah, I know. But he's like, and they get pissed. They're like, just, this is it. This is what you signed up for. I said, I get it. But I'm like, sometimes you could taste, it's right there in front of you. You could taste it. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to get that amazing meal. And then someone just yanks it away. And it's like, it's disheartening. It hurts.
Yeah.
Because you put all this love into, an audition, or you get so close.
Yeah.
And then they just yank it away. But there was one, it took me about a week. It was a movie. And it was right after COVID, and I think it was one of the first auditions I got to do in person again because everything's on tape and video.
Virtually.
And I had to get COVID tested to go to the audition, not like,
Right.
get COVID tested when you work on the job. You had to get COVID tested to go on the audition. And it was at a hotel, and it was one of my favorite directors. And it was actually a chemistry read with one of the biggest actors on the planet.
Yeah.
And there I am in the room for about a half hour with the actor and the director who I've loved all his movies throughout the years. And I studied. I mean, I probably the hardest, like I've studied the hardest for this because I was like, this is a good spot. This would be great if you got it. And I was so prepared. I mean, I was so on. But sometimes, again, it could be the littlest thing, like, oh, he's not that certain weight, or he's got like,
Right.
he doesn't, he might be that age, but he don't look it. Like I just went in for something. I said 50s.
Yeah.
Now I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I don't look.
Absolutely not. No.
I'm not going to hide it because you can just go Google my age. I mean, I don't look 55. I know I don't. But like I think back when I was younger and I looked at a 55-year-old, they looked 75.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I get it. I don't look 55. I don't look that 55. And it was a period piece in the 90s. So in the 90s, a 55-year-old guy looked like he was 75, no?
Yeah, you look like an old man.
Yeah. And I mean, I look at like they show like Archie Bunker. Like Archie Bunker was 48
Yeah.
when he did that show. I mean, so sometimes it could just be the littlest thing. It's not because of the work. It's just like this, sometimes it doesn't happen. It doesn't click. You just got to move on.
Yeah.
Listen, it sounds easy, easier than done, but it's again, and I go back to, someone like Stallone who says, it's not how hard you hit. It's how many times you get hit. And you fall down and you keep moving forward. That was one of his best quotes. And that was later on in life in those movies. That's so true.
When I first met you, I knew you were an actor. But when I Googled you, I'm like, holy shit, he really is. Like you were in more stuff that I really realized that you were in. Like was it NYPD? Blue or Blue Bloods?
Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods.
Yeah, I did
You
one
were in
episode
Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods. Yeah.
You were in a shitload of movies. I'm like, holy shit, he's been. That's when I started watching them. I started watching Capone, then I started watching Cruise because I wanted to get to know. Now, while I'm watching these movies, I'm getting to see the people you work with in the movies because you kind of always, at times, you have the same people you work with in your movies, especially Jersey Bread. Now, here I am binge watching Destroying My Life. This Is Us. Okay? And then all of a sudden, a couple episodes
my
in.
daughter's mom just I think she just wrapped it up in the last year.
Yes,
And she says, have you seen this? I go, I haven't. But I would like when I'm with my daughter, I would hear sniffling in the room,
Right.
crying. And I've seen like certain bits and pieces of it. I mean, it's
one of those
heart-wrenching.
things that it's 6 seasons, and when I start something, I got to finish it. Now here I'm a divorced dad with 2 kids. It just like hit me. But then here I am crying my ass off, and all of a sudden I see Jeremy Luke in an episode.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I'm thinking about fucking Staten Island when he was a door guy, and I stopped crying because I couldn't cry anymore because he used to be.
He played
a great part.
Milo
Milo's
Ventimiglia's best friend. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in a couple of 1 or 2 episodes in that at the time when Milo was before he met Beck, and he was.
See,
great.
I don't know the names on the. I should watch it.
It's a great listen. It's one of probably the.
I don't know if
it's an emotional train wreck.
I don't want to say I'm depressed. I mean, we live in a depressed
You know what it
scenario
is,
as
man?
it is. I don't know if I want to go that.
If I got through it, I think anyone could get through it. Honestly, because
But your label that you call yourself the emotional comedian. So
Yeah.
maybe it was kind of like
it was fucked up, man.
Who suffered
Jesus
the most
Christ.
was me. Him calling me crying all the time.
It is such an emotion.
But I hear every episode's like that, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Every
they
episode.
force you. It's like
They find
if they're like, all right, this wasn't so bad. Boom, they like want you to fucking cry. No, you're gonna cry. If you didn't find this sad, you're gonna cry. Watch what happens next.
Sometimes, okay. The judging the book by its cover. I don't want to sound redundant because I've said this in on other interviews. Like an example, like of course I always wanted to work with Scorsese, right? Of course, who doesn't want to work with Scorsese, right? Like, but I know Scorsese from like the '70s, not like You know, now Scorsese, everybody wants to work with the guy, right? Because yeah, he put in. Thank you so much. Everybody wants to work with, like, oh, he's done all these like great movies, but like some people don't go as far back as like, I don't even say Mean Streets. You know, like Boxcar Bertha. I think that's his film or whatever. Like these old school like films back then. So when he was doing The Irishman, I knew he was going to be doing The Irishman, and this is when I when actors ask me, well, how did you go about like, getting in The Irishman? I'm like, well, like I knew there was a book. It was called I Heard You Paint Houses, and it was going to be The Irishman, and Scorsese was going to do it. I put in the work. I read the book. I picked out a scene from the book. I wrote a monologue. I put myself like on camera. This is 2016. It's almost 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And I did the work and I gave it to my agent and he sent it in to the casting director. And there were thousands of people trying to get on this movie when they started casting it and when they were going to start making the movie. And I got the call from the casting director and said,
Crazy.
Great tape, but, we want him to read for Marty. Like, we want him to come in because it was a tape. We want him to come in to audition for the movie. And then I go in and I read for the movie and then I'm up. But this whole process took like 4 months.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting there. He's up for 3 roles. And at the last second, I wind up getting the role with no lines. But Scorsese, whether it's no lines, if you're playing a real person from a real time, doesn't matter. Like I played a politician. I didn't even play a gangster. So I played the mayor of Philadelphia. And I'm like, the mayor of Philadelphia, Frank Rizzo, he was like 6'2".
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm 5'10" on a good day. And I'm like, all right. So my excuse was I was eating like crazy. I was like, I started getting wide, not taller. Mm-hmm. And they put the sideburns and stuff. But they said, the agent, goes, the casting director says, he's up for this role, but he's not going to have any lines, but he's going to be on a dais with De Niro and Pacino. Right. And, he's going to be working 5 days. I'm like, I'm in. Like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And he's the one who said, no, I like him for that. I know the other roles that I was up for. I physically wasn't like the other actors. It's not because my auditions were bad.
Right.
Just, I wasn't physically what Scorsese was looking for.
Yeah.
And I get it. Of course I wanted to be that guy, having the scenes and the dialogue with Pacino and De Niro at the same time. Of course you want to be that guy. But people think that, again, oh, you went in the audition, you got the job, and then, oh, you got no lines, so you weren't really in the movie. I'm like, I went to work every day for over 2 weeks. It was supposed to be 5 days. So there I am for 2 weeks. Like, at the end, I had to pinch myself. I'm like, oh, okay, De Niro's there, Pacino's there, Harvey Keitel's there, Ray Romano's there. I'm eating lunch with Ray Romano every day. To me, it's an opportunity just to be with your peers and
circle,
and you're working with people you've respected and you've watched as a kid.
Yeah, we spotted you in that movie right away.
For real?
Yeah,
you were sitting at the table on the stage.
But then you get people that are like, oh, you weren't really in the movie. You were like in it for a split second. I'm like, yeah, but do you know how to?
It's not that point. That's not.
But they don't get it.
Yeah.
See, they don't get it. Because I get in the dating world, I get this all the time. Oh, so I don't even put like on the dating sites. I don't put actor. I'll put entertainment professional. I had like someone just said,
"What are you? Jerk off.
What are you? What are you? A DJ? No. I'm like, if I was a DJ, you don't think I put a picture of like me like DJing? Yeah. They're like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm an actor. They're like, no, like, what do you really do? I go, I'm an actor. But you have to have another job, right? I go, well, I mean, I kind of did. I've been doing it a long time now. This is what I do. And the balls of some of these girls. This girl said to me, well, I'm looking for someone more ambitious.
Yeah.
I was like, I got taken back by that. I'm like, there's nothing more ambitious going after your dream and putting in the time and getting knocked down and getting back up and persevering and then doing it all over again. Like, excuse me, what do you do? You're a bank teller. Like, I'm not going to say it like that. I would never say that. Like, I respect all walks of life when it comes to work. But like, again, you're judging me like, oh, I'm more ambitious. You know nothing about me. You met me on a dating app. Exactly. But again, this is what we live in. We live in a world, in a culture of insensitivity. Like no one cares anymore. Be like, oh,
Absolutely.
you're talking for 1 second, boom, click, you delete, and you're gone.
Yeah. It's
Well,
so
guess what? I have a very good memory.
Yeah.
I'll run into these people again, and it's like, oh, have I met you before on these? I'm gonna go, yeah, you did. And I'm like, delete.
It's like it's never gonna happen like the way you met your ex, the way I met my ex-wife. Those were like times that today don't exist.
Well,
You know
the
what I
funny
mean?
thing is, the funny thing is that I met her cousin, and this is 1992. I met her cousin. Do you remember the party line, the chat lines back in the day, like the 900, not even the 900 numbers. They were like chat lines, where you just like get on. No, you don't remember those?
I don't remember those.
See, you remember the chat lines or no?
There was
You would call up and then just
It was just a number, and you would like get pulled into like with a bunch of people.
really? Get out of here.
And you'd be like, "Hi, I'm so and so from Queens," and
Oh, get
you'd
the
be like,
like,
it
That's
was
pretty
wild.
cool.
And then if you wanted to talk, you would go into like a room. It was very. I mean, it was ahead of its time, but it was all audio. And then you would like go into like you would get their like box number, and you would leave them a message, and you go back and forth leaving each other messages, and then you would randomly just go meet meet this person. And
Wow.
I mean, there were days and nights that it was like, whoa, what did I just do?
Yeah.
And then there were days and nights that were like, holy shit, like wow, like without there was no like send me a picture or anything like that. It
Yeah.
was none of that.
Total
It was like
blind.
you just went on your gut. Yeah, total blind. But you had some sort of conversation with them. And my ex-wife, I met her cousin, and then she brought out my ex-wife, which was her cousin, one night. And I just like was like, "Who's that?"
Right.
And that's
cool.
how I met her. But it
Wow,
was
I never-
meeting
I
her
never knew
cousin
that.
through one of those like dating sites. So
it's like these girls, like you were saying before. It's like they almost need proof to believe you.
again, that's why I don't again, like, I'm not the guy to be like, oh, just Google me. I'm not going to say that, but it's like, I can't hide.
Yeah.
Not that I would want to hide. And sometimes I try to have a private life. Like I don't really talk about my, private life, but I did write a children's book. I want to talk about my daughter, and I'm proud. I'll post pictures. Sometimes I'll take them down. Sometimes I'll put them back up. Like, but you could, again, go on a computer or go on your phone and put my name in, and the book will pop up,
Yeah.
his daughter and this and that. So it's like I can't hide it, but I try to keep it as private as possible, but it's impossible to
Right.
keep it private. But again, if you want to find out, you just go find out. So,
Exactly.
but when I tell these girls, they still think they're being catfished because it's happened to them before.
Yeah.
They're like, but are you the guy? I'm like, but why would I? But people do that. They fake their identity or catfish each other. It's, yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear some of this. I mean, are you on dating apps?
I am. Well, I was, but I go on and off because I'm at an age. I'm 43 years old. So I'm
Jesus
still
Christ,
at.
man.
I'm still at that age that a lot of women.
And how old are you?
40.
Yeah, I'm still at that age that a lot of women still want to have kids. So a lot of these women I'm meeting, they're like pressuring. They're like, because I have 2 kids. I know what it is to have kids. You know what I mean? I feel for a woman that's in her early 40s and never had a kid or never got married because they're so eager to find something. And then I'm like quick to judge, well, maybe you shouldn't be on these dating sites pressuring yourself to find anything. But then again, there's nothing. That's what they have to do nowadays, or else they're not going to meet anyone.
Let me ask you a question
You know
when
what I
it comes to the dating thing. Like, I mean, do you believe in, like, I know a lot of people like to loosely use the word soulmate. Do you believe in that?
I do. Absolutely.
See, I don't like to use the word soulmate, but I do believe you meet certain people for a certain reason.
Yeah.
So certain people are supposed to come into your life, friends, family, family that you maybe you didn't have either,
Yeah.
or lovers and
Yeah.
that
I
your
actually
friends have
could,
become
I actually
lovers, but-
believe you can actually have a soulmate and not be married to them anymore. Let's just say you move on with your life, you remarry and a whole life, and I still believe that someone from your past could still be a soulmate.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm connected. I mean, we haven't spoken since my dad passed a year and a half ago, but she reached out to me. It's this girl I dated, was my first true love when I was like 19, who you want to talk about having an Apollonia moment, like when like Michael Corleone saw Apollonia
Yeah.
in Italy. Like that's how I was when I saw her. I was like who
Right.
is this girl? Like, and I don't want to sound cliche, like guys like, Sonny, Chaz Palminteri's character in A Bronx Tale, you'll, have three greats in your life and stuff like that. Stuff like that, I believe, like there's certain people that come into your life. But it's hard to get that feeling again, especially now.
Yeah.
Being older and the climate, the social climate we're in, because people are not their authentic or genuine self.
But do you feel like it's what you said because I'm getting older, or is it because I've been through it and your guard is higher?
Well, I use these, I use words like transparency and, I'm upfront. I'm not going to, take you for a ride.
Right.
I'm very transparent. I say I'm an artist. I'm a single dad who spends a lot of time with his kid. My dad was sick at the time and he had passed, and now I get my mom, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so you live with your mom? I'm like, no, we're not. No, we don't live. So they get thrown off by that. Too.
Yeah,
I'm like, what would you do in that situation? It doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, I don't like. They can say whatever they want. They're not in that spot, so I don't care. Like, you could say whatever you want. Like, you're not in that spot. Let me see what you would do if you were in my position. But I get a lot of that when you're on the dating app. The top three. What do you do? Where do you live? And what are you looking for?
At the moment where I am in my life, I'm trying to think that I'm like ready for something that I'm really not. So
I don't have to like, just talk to a psychiatrist or psychologist about like I get it. Like, I'm an artist now. Like, I didn't, you could, like I could sit here and say, I didn't feel like that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Definitely not 20 years ago. Like, I knew what I wanted to do. So you get,
absolutely,
you're like, okay, you're getting who you are and you're getting better at what you're doing. Again, every amateur, every professional was an amateur at some point.
Yeah.
Like Tom Brady was not a quarterback until he became a quarterback and became one of the greats. Like, so for me, like I got so used to like, okay, I'm going after my goal. But I tell you, there's those days and nights to be like, like, of course I'm gonna doubt it. Like, wait, did I make the right choice in life?
Yeah.
I know I'm like, I wanted to go into the filmmaking world and the acting, and then I went to LA for 7 years. Did I go for that? Like, should I have not gone to, like, you start questioning yourself, but I know down deep inside, like, we all have a path.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Frank knows that too. I mean, you wanted to do all the stuff that you passed up on, but sometimes you think about what's better for you and your family, and that's what you did. You know what I mean?
Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, you panic and you may make a wrong decision. Does it circle back? Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's why talking to you today, it's kind of encouraging. And I was asking you earlier conversation today, was it scary to make the transition?
It was, but I didn't overthink it. Like, I didn't overthink it. I'm like, either jump into the deep end of the pool or don't.
See, I panicked and I lost it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's inspiring to hear it, what you did.
My mother said this to me, a few years back, and she doesn't say it anymore because I don't, when I was living in LA, my mother would say to me, "Well, can't you do what you're doing here in New York, what you're doing in LA?" I go, "But I didn't go to LA for this. I went to LA just to get away. I happen to have been in Tinseltown where they make TV and film, and at the time, I think reality TV was at its highest.
Yeah.
Like, and I was taking odd and end jobs. I was like, a coffee boy, a PA on The Bachelor.
Yeah.
Like, but I wanted to meet people. So I leave a $250,000, potential, salary a year job to go get coffee for but I didn't care because I was meeting people. I was on a set. I was in LA. I was like, oh, but for me, that was like, that was fulfilling. I was meeting people. I was doing my thing. But again, you don't sometimes you can't overthink it.
Yeah.
You just don't overthink it. I'm like, no, I'm going to follow. Because she said, well, can't you do what you're doing in LA here in New York? But I'll give you an example. So when I went to LA, this was 2006, I'm living in a bunk bed.
You picked up and went.
I picked up and went. Like, it wasn't like I planned it. Like I talked to a friend in LA. It's like, oh, I got a couch for you. Just, come. I'm in Santa Monica, and you don't have to pay rent for like the first month. But then if you want to stay on the couch, pay a couple $100. I'm like, cool. I picked up and went. Lived by the beach, Santa Monica. Then I made my way into West Hollywood. I started roommating. Like I was 37, 38 at the time. I never had a roommate. I didn't go away to college.
Yeah.
I never had a roommate. Yeah, I had my brother, like, and in the bunk beds, but literally bought a bunk bed because we had a studio apartment and I had bunk beds. I'm going, what the fuck am I doing? I got bunk beds. I'm going, and people be like, oh, that's sad. I go, no, it's not sad. You just do it. Like,
Exactly.
do it. You're saving money on rent or whatever. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? I wake up, it's February, you're like, it's freezing in New York. I'm in LA and this and that. But this is when the epiphany, the light bulb went off, because I went to LA and I met a friend of mine who's an actor, Paul Gennaro. He's in Hit Your Mark, and he was my roommate, and he was very techie, and YouTube just started. Like, so I moved out in 2006. YouTube started in 2005.
Yeah.
So it's like 2008, and I took a video cassette and I converted it to DVD, and he took the DVD. It was my first reel, and it had, an episode of Sopranos where, again, they took away my lines, but it got me my SAG card.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about that, and I might be going off on a tangent, I had friends going in for that show 5, 10, 15 times. I went for that show once. Again, that was another, light bulb. Oh shit, I got it. Meaning I got it.
Right.
Like, you went in for one audition, you got called in, you read for David Chase, you got the part. My friends were going in 5, 10, 15 times. I went in once. So what does that tell you? It's like, okay, you got the goods. He liked you. You took a risk in the room and you got the part. But the reel had The Sopranos, it had some short film, and it had a few other things on it. He put it on YouTube and he hashtagged it. It's like, I don't know what a hashtag was back then. It's like he hashtagged it, and it sat on YouTube for like a month, and I get a phone call from a writer director because I left my number at the end of the reel.
Yeah.
But then I realized, oh shit, I left my number on the internet. Like, someone could just randomly call my phone now. It's because it's the same number I've had for like 25 years. I'm going to my job on a Sunday into Beverly Hills to bartend, and I get a random phone call, and the guy gets on the phone and goes, "Hey, I saw your reel on YouTube." I thought it was a joke. I go, "Yeah."
Right.
No, he's like, "I was like, come on." I thought it was my friends back home going, and I was like, and I hang up on the guy, and he calls me back. He goes, no. He goes, I saw your reel on YouTube. You look like you could play Patton Oswalt's brother. And he goes, you know who Patton Oswalt is? I go, yeah, he's a comedian. He goes, yeah, you could play his brother. He goes, I just wrote a movie called The Wrestler.
Yep.
And The Wrestler wasn't out yet, but I knew about the movie because I was a cinephile. I loved movies. He goes, I wrote a movie called The Wrestler. We just wrapped on it. And now I'm doing my next one that I'm directing called Big Fan.
Mm-hmm.
He just took a chance. He said, I want you for the role. I didn't audition.
Wow.
He goes, so we start on Monday. I go, but I'm in LA. He goes, but you got a New York number. I go, I'm in LA. I pay my own flight back. I say my parents are in New York. I'm going to stay with them.
Yeah.
He gives me a job, like on a great script. And then fast forward, The Wrestler comes out and it gets all these kudos, and he wrote it. And then the film that I did, Big Fan, made it to Sundance. Wow. And as a kid, I dreamt about going to Sundance, and it was up for Best Picture at Sundance, in the dramatic competition. And there I am, first day of shooting, I'm changing in a car, freezing my ass off in Staten Island. But when again, it doesn't matter, like sacrifice. You just go with it. And he took a chance on me.
Yeah.
So going back to what my mom said, can't you do what you do in New York, what you do there? Now, let's say I don't, like, if we can hop in a time machine right now, and I hop in the DeLorean and I go back to that period of time, and the Sports Almanac scenario, and I don't put my reel on YouTube, that writer-director, Rob Siegel, who I'm always grateful to, he doesn't call me because my reel is not on YouTube.
Wow.
So, and that was kind of like my break as, a supporting role in a movie was in 2008, 2009. And again, this is going back, 15 years ago already.
Yeah.
So I don't go out to LA. I don't meet Paul Gennaro. He don't put it on YouTube. There's another actor playing that role.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? But then fast forward, because we build a relationship and we stay in touch.
Yeah.
and I show him Franny Lou, the short story that I wrote and directed that's on YouTube. And he says, it's got to be a movie, not a series. And we collaborate on Cruise.
Wow.
Cruise doesn't even get made because I don't meet Rob Siegel when he casts me for Big Fan if I don't go to LA, if I don't bunk with Paul Gennaro. Like, there's no Cruise. Maybe my version of it, maybe, if I thought of it. But I wouldn't go to LA thinking of writing Franny Lou in my apartment with, some of these producers that said, write what you know. Yeah. So I know that it was meant for me to go to LA just to circle back, to come back to New York.
Wow.
So that's what, but we try to explain that to an Italian immigrant mom.
Yeah.
She's not going to get it, but I believe like that's the reason.
Yeah.
Because it's like you could take this road and that'll happen. But if you take that road, that'll happen. But that was a wake up call for me. I'm like, well, I was supposed to come out to LA to do that, to meet certain friends, to stay in touch with certain people. And I stay in touch, and we're like best friends with certain people that I met in Los Angeles.
Wow. So speaking of YouTube and Hit Your Mark, tell us about your new project coming up, Hit Your Mark. Well,
it's called Hit Your Mark. That's a term in the TV and film when you like hit your mark, like they put marks on the floor and like say action, and you step on your mark, you deliver your line. But I felt that it was a very universal message to hit your mark in life. So though, again, it's close to home, Pete Salerno, who I play, is loosely me, right? So single dad, actor who, goes to LA for a big opportunity. And I bunk with a friend of mine who I met on a reality show, which I really did. His name is Dante, Chris Alighieri. He also wrote an amazing children's book that I helped him package. And we stayed in touch throughout the years. And then when COVID hit and everything shut down, we kind of got together and started collaborating. Myself, my partner, Carmine Famigletti, who we wrote it. And Chris, myself and Carmine created it. And it was real. Like it came from a real place. Like Cruise came from a real place. So like single dad, actor, hit his mark. It's about friendship, but in any profession in life or in your personal, like just go for yours. Like whether it be go for that, that girl that you have a crush on and ask her out, or, you want that job, whatever it may be, just, go for it, go for yours. We shopped it, got great feedback, but sometimes things happen for certain reasons, and the work is that good that we just really wanted to get out there, and we chopped up the pilot that we shot as a proof of concept and chopped it up into a short form series.
A couple of clips that I've seen, it does look pretty interesting. It fun. Looks pretty good.
I mean, it's fun. I mean, I get from like people that have seen it already. They're like, that's kind of like your best work. Well, I would say it's my best work because it's close to me, because I'm playing a real person, because I've been getting DMs from like actors. They're like, oh, finally something that's coming out that really shows the reality of what it's like.
Right.
To be an actor. So I always use the example of like, picture Johnny Drama, like not being Vince's brother as the superstar. What would Johnny Drama be doing? Like, going on auditions, trying to like get that role.
Right.
Like, so you either see the guy as very successful, or you see the guy as kind of like going through like a really downtime in his life, but you never really get to see like the come up. Yeah. Or I don't want to use the word struggle, but the ups and downs of being an artist, an actor, like, having other things in life going on. And I know you can relate to that and respect that. Like there's other things going on in life. And I mean, I even put my daughter in it,
right?
Because I wanted to make it, true to that. But to me, it's a great piece of work because it's relatable, whether you're an artist or, a guy that's trying to, go for that job that he's been wanting. My definition of success is very different from a lot of people's definition of success.
So when does it air?
It streams, because everyone likes to use the word stream. September 27th, the first 2 episodes are going to drop. We're still contemplating whether we're going to drop all 4 episodes. I think that's most likely what we're going to do, but we were talking about maybe dropping the first 2, but September 27th, which falls on a Friday.
So then every week it's a new episode, or?
No, we're going to just drop it.
Just drop it all. Okay.
People like, they'll get bored. They'll
and
be
where
like, okay.
would it be streaming?
YouTube. YouTube.
Streaming on YouTube.
And of course, you get people like, really? It's going to stream on YouTube? But then if you really do the work, I mean, YouTube's got 236 million subscribers.
There's YouTube TV also that you could just stream on.
Right.
You know.
It's just again, it doesn't matter where it streams at.
Yeah.
If you get the work out there, and again, if you like in Field of Dreams, if you build it, you get the work done, it'll come.
That's why I asked you earlier. I'm like, if that succeeds, which I've seen clips, it looks pretty enticing. Can a network potentially pick it up, or
Yes,
that can happen? So
yes.
that's what's great for having it out there.
Yes, and again, I'm self-aware. If someone, like I'll use an example because, I mean, that's probably the closest I would say. Like I'm more of like a Mark Ruffalo, or
Right.
like some people have said you're kind of like almost like even Paul Giamatti with a mixture of Kevin James. Like my idol was Jackie Gleason. But again, you're not. You're not. I mean, saying casting directors or producers or directors, they're not going to be like, you could play a school teacher. Like they're not. They go cliche. They go stereotype because it's safe for them, right? So to me, it's my best work because I can actually have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Like have some fun with it, where there's some like real stuff to it, because. I'm not again. When are they going to say, okay, they're making another King of Queens, and we're gonna call you in because that's the first thing I think of. I mean, you saw Capone, right?
Yeah.
You know how many times I've gotten from girls on dating apps that have seen that movie? They're like, "You're not gonna bring a knife with you on the date, are you?"
Yeah.
Come on.
Just, I mean, I know they're joking around, but they say it in like a way of like almost like
Yeah.
they get a little weirded out. I'm like, or they'll say, "Are you acting now?" Like, what do you mean? Like, are you like acting now? Like when you're talking to me? I go, no, it's a job. Like,
Yeah.
you go in, like, it's a job.
Right.
You go in, like, I don't need to like live in the bushes, method acting.
Yeah.
And,
Capone, you were very natural in that movie, man. It was like you had a lot of parts in that movie. You were basically his right-hand man, I would say.
Yeah. But again, it goes back to that. So the guy that wrote and directed that movie, Josh Trank, he was a producer on Big Fan.
Okay.
So you had the writer director Rob Siegel, then you had the producer and the editor Josh Trank, who I knew when I met him. I go, this guy's a genius. As I said, and Rob Siegel, who wrote it, I'm like, this guy's a genius. Like they've gone further in their career because they're good at what they did. But again, they started right. If you don't start, you don't know where you're going to be at a few years later. But Josh Trank wrote that role for me in Capone.
Yeah.
And my name's Gino in the movie.
It is Gino in the movie.
And I'm like, he's like, I wrote that role and you inspired me to like write that role for you. And the whole Capone thing in that world. And the beautiful thing about that movie, I know they break Tom Hardy's balls in that movie. Like they shredded him as in reviews. But when I read the script, I was like, you don't see that in it's not to me, it's not a gangster movie. It's not. It's more of like a psychological movie. Like what happens to a guy that had all that power,
What he went through.
fame as a gangster,
Yeah.
and starts losing his mind in a house with his family and his friends and people that have worked for him.
Right.
And I thought that was an amazing concept. But then again, think about it. Like, I don't go to LA. I don't meet Paul. I don't get it on YouTube. Rob don't call me.
It's all a chain.
And then I
man.
don't meet
It's all a
Josh
chain.
Trank, and Capone don't exist either.
Yeah.
It all
know?
circles back.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, I could, like, and Matt Dillon was in that movie.
Yep.
And Matt Dillon, I was his, not assistant, but PA on a movie called Mr. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie was in 1990, 91. And it had Annabella Sciorra, the lead, Matt Dillon. It was written by, but the director was Anthony Minghella. He passed away a few years back, an amazing director. He did The English Patient. He did The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah.
He passed away young. He was a sweetheart. I was an intern. I wasn't even getting paid. I was an intern, and there I am buying cigarettes for Matt Dillon. I'm getting sushi for Annabella. I'm getting, I'm babysitting, some of the producers' kids on the movie.
Yeah.
And I was just learning like filmmaking. And it was a small actor by the name of James Gandolfini that was in that movie that went on a blind date with Annabella.
Yep.
He had like one scene. And I was like sitting with him a whole day. Again, fast forward, like, what, 7 years later, 8 years later, he's Tony Soprano. He's a big star in the world.
Right.
So again, you don't know where something may lead. But I told Matt Dillon that when we started working together. And I go, 30 years ago, I was a PA on Mr. Wonderful. And now he's supposed to be the one in the chair. I don't know, spoiler alerts from Capone, but he's the one in the chair that I'm stabbing was Matt Dillon.
Okay.
So 30 years later, here I am in the same hotel, having breakfast every morning with Matt Dillon, going over lines, helping him with his lines, talking about the Mets. I said I was a PI on Mr. Wonderful. And you circle back 30 years later, here I am getting your cigarettes and getting your coffee, and now I'm doing scenes with you 30 years later. To me, that's motivation for me.
Yeah.
To be like, you know what? I don't know where this hit your mark. Like, I don't need to know where this hit your mark is going to go. I know it will. It's going to get into the hands of someone that will, but I don't need to know who it's going to be or when it's going to happen.
Right.
It could be tomorrow. It could be 2 years from now.
Gino, it's been very inspiring hearing all this stuff, and I'm hoping everybody out there is listening. Would you like to tell everyone where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram at Gino Cafarelli. Hit Your Mark series on YouTube. Hit Your Mark series on Instagram as well.
All right, check it out. Hit Your Mark at the end of September 27th.
Yeah, September 27th.
It's going to air YouTube. Check it out. I think it's going to be great.
Gino, again, thank you so much for coming.
Frank, Sal, thank you so much.
You got it.
Marco, who's not on camera, right? But he's back there making shit happen. I see.
Enza's doing the board over there. Thank you, Enza.
Enza, thank you.
And the makeup crew, everybody back there watching. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone.
I needed a little more gel in my hair. You know, it didn't,
Good night, everybody.